This is our first try. This is our first try at hybrid. We're going to be aiming for this for the fall, so people can participate remotely, and also those in town can participate in person. Torin, do you think they can hear me?
I can hear
Okay.
you, Bill.
Okay, good. I'll start over. Hi. Once again, I have to remind Wendy to control herself. Welcome to LitFest 2021. I'm William Henderson, Lighthouse's book project director, and this is our happy hour reading featuring the book project. This is our last book project event of LitFest, and these people are graduating from the program after 2 years, and they're going to show you what they've been up to. Before I introduce everyone, a couple of quick announcements. You can find the link to our final visiting authors reading tonight with Leslie Jameson and Matt Johnson in the chat. That's free and kicks off at 6 o'clock Mountain Time. And if LitFest got you fired up to write, good news, our summer session just went live. We'll put a link to those classes in the chat as well. I'd like to thank the SCFD, National Endowment for the Arts, and Colorado Creative Industries for helping to make LitFest 2021 possible, and a special thanks to Book Bar, our official book selling partner this year and a good place to drink while you read. That's just a bit about the book project if you're just a guest for the first time. It's our 2-year writing program. It's sort of like an MFA program. We have 4 mentors. You work with your mentor in your mentor group, which is 6 people in each group each year. We have weekend intensives. Everybody gets to know your book really well. You learn about publishing from our publishing expert. You can look it up online. The deadline for the BP applications, the book project applications, is June 19th, so that's coming up really soon. After the reading tonight, our writers would be happy to answer questions about their writing projects, the process, their time in the book project, world affairs, and the weather. Our readers, in order, I'll come up after each reader to introduce the next. We have some that are remote and some that are in person. We have Catherine Grant from Ben's group, who's remote. Francis Jenner is here. Howard Bartlett is in Salt Lake. He's from my group. Mimi is in my group, and she is right there. Donnie Ray, right there from my group. Meg Foley, right there. And Anna Blomberg, who is remote. Our first reader tonight is Catherine Grant.
Just trying to get my story on the page on the screen here so I can read it. I'm turning 5. My parents are divorced, so I get 2 birthday parties, 1 at each house. I'm a lucky duck. My stepmom, Kathy, has planned something special just for me. I'm obsessed with cakes that look like a beautiful little doll wearing a full pretty skirt. The doll's actual body is stuck in the middle of the cake, and the cake is her skirt. These are the most enchanting birthday cakes ever. I can't remember where I first saw this type of cake, but I want it more than anything. The hour arrives for my party and the doorbell rings. Sisters Sandy, Terry, and Chrissy come from 4 doors down the block. Dad invites them in, and we sit around the dining table with my brothers. Everyone starts singing, "Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you." I can't wait to finally see the magical dolly cake that stepmom has made for me. She emerges from the kitchen carrying it high above our heads. Everyone sings some more. I feel like dancing, I'm so happy. She lowers the cake in front of me onto the fancy dining room table. Melting wax candles drip onto the skirt-shaped frosting. I try to blow out the candles, but the air leaves my chest. The doll looks just like my stepmom. Kathy has designed an outfit for herself that is exactly like the doll's outfit. Full, puffy orange skirt that billows around her like the cake, and a skin-tight yellow top. The doll's hair matches her hair too, short and blonde. My hair is long and dark. My stomach hurts. I try not to let my feelings show, but secretly I wish the doll's skirt was pink instead. I love pink so much that when I was asked to join the brownies, I said I'd prefer the pinkies. I suck in just enough air to blow out the candles. I look up. My stepmom towers above me, a large knife in hand. She cuts the cake into pieces for everyone, but the spongy yellow slices barely hold together. With so much cake now missing from the skirt, I notice the dolly at the center is just a torso without legs. I wish that she had legs. She's clothed only in frosting and bits of cake. I don't know whether or not to save her as if she were a real doll. Later, my stepmom puts her in the trash. A few years later, on a cloudy Sunday afternoon, Dad calls a family meeting in the living room. My stepmom bursts out crying, explaining how tired she is of putting on a happy face and pretending to be a family. When my brother and I visited on the weekend, we didn't help her with the dishes or acknowledge her efforts. We were supposed to think of these things, but we hadn't, and she just needed honesty now. A break from us. We'd all be better off. This was for us in a way. In short, we were no longer welcome at the house in the Pinery. When we first moved into that house, my room had Disney wallpaper on the walls. I had a nightmare that evil Goofy wanted to kill me. He looked funny and nice, but he was after me. It was a case of duality, like so many things in my life. Kathy redecorated the bedroom a pale lavender with a picture of ballerina toe shoes on the wall and a cascading rainbow that fell from the ceiling off a circular piece of plastic. It was so beautiful that it made me feel like a princess. When I left, I take the cascading, sorry, my tenses are a little screwed up. When I leave, I take the cascading pastel rainbow back to Mom's house and try to hang it up there, but its colorful strings are tangled in the box. It isn't the same. Kathy created a room that was fantasy, a reality, but more vivid and perfect, with brighter colors, and just as quickly, she took it away. The red carpet rolled up, receding back into the fairy palace where I was no longer welcome.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Catherine. That was excellent. And it reminded me, I always wanted that doll skirt cake, and they gave me a goddamn baseball mitt cake instead.
No.
It took me right back.
I'll make you one that looks like me.
Our next reader, also from Ben Whitmer's group, is Frances Jenner.
Thank you. I'll be reading from my novel, Boy Lost. It's the story of Billy the Kid. Jailer went out, locked the front door, and left me alone in the corridor. I walked it. My body relaxed, and an idea came to me. It was from Buffalo Bill's dime novel. He'd escaped jail by shimmying up a fireplace. Heck, I could try it. I eyed the fireplace there in the center of the room, made my way over to it, bent down, slipped under the chimney opening, looked up and saw daylight a long way up there at the top. Jailer would be back soon. I grabbed the brick edge inside the chimney, dug my fingers into it, used my feet and hands, pushed and pulled my body up towards the light, one brick at a time. Halfway up, the wall thinned and tightened around me. I pushed further. It stopped me. Tried to push up, tried to push down. I was stuck. I breathed in a big breath. Soot filled my nose and clogged it. Smelled like charred smoke. I coughed, loud enough for Jailer to hear. Thought I heard something. Had he come back? Cinders got into my eyes. They watered up. I blinked, closed them, kept them shut a while, and finally opened them. I could see again, but I couldn't get up or down that chimney. Jailer and sheriff would have to get on the roof, throw a rope down, lasso, and pull me out. I'd get jail forever. My inside started jumping like somebody turned me upside down and shook me. I had to find a way. I sucked in my belly, made myself skimpy, clasped my arms up and around my head, and squeezed my legs together straight as a tree trunk. I pushed and I pulled and I clawed, and after all that, I got myself unstuck. I moved up the chimney inch by inch, slow as time, repeating to myself to make it true. Jailer won't come. Jailer won't come. Rubbing my eyes clear of soot and cinder. I found my breath and felt for each edge so I could hold on. Gave myself another push-up and then another. I was a cat climbing a tree. Maybe it's possible. That thought spurred me on. I finally reached the very top edge of the chimney. I clutched it. Using all my strength, I tried to pull myself up. Over and over, I did, but I kept sinking back into the chimney hole. What if I made it all this way and couldn't make the final escape? I gave another shove, pushed so hard, all my muscles bulged out, and it felt like someone was hammering a nail into my arm. That got the top of my body up and out the chimney. I was hanging there, my head and arms outside it, my eyes gazing down at the roof just a few feet below, flat as a table, my feet still inside the chimney. I slung one leg over the top, then another, and found myself sitting on the chimney edge. I could see Hudson Street below where the jail fronted, and behind me, Broadway and our old cabin. I didn't see Jailer, but he was coming soon. I could feel it. I jumped down onto the roof, steadied my legs and feet, and looked myself over. Everything on me was soot. I smelled like it too. I rubbed my forehead, soot in my hand. I looked up at the sky, clouds drifting across. The sun came out, warmed my face. Damn, I thought to myself, I'm born for climbing chimneys. I could escape any jail they put me in. A rush of something was coming into me. I'd heard the word rapturous, and I never knew what it meant, but I knew it then, rapturous. Said it to myself, and I laughed, and I felt like I could fly like a bird.
Thank you, Frances. That was gorgeous. It kind of made me think of what it feels like to come out from behind our masks and have a party, just a little bit. Our next reader from my group is Howard Bartlett. Is Howard there?
I am here. Thank you, Bill. I lie atop my very own candy-striped breath, the outgoing tide beneath me, the July sky above. The air mattress I have tied to the island dock rides the breeze-teased water at the end of a 20-foot line. The seagull's cries are good measure of the fine scavenging low tide will bring. Far off I hear a motorboat, closer in, Holly calling to me. I open my eyes, take a moment to stare up into my slice of sky through polarized sunglasses before I raise my head, look past my toes to where Holly and our toddler daughter, Anna, are standing on the dock. Our little Anna is holding Holly's hand while Holly, long and lean in her black bathing suit, waves frantically. She yells something, but the breeze kites her words away. What? I'm irritated. I was almost asleep. I prop myself on my elbows, cock my head to one side as Holly tries again. I still am unable to hear. Holly puts her hands on her hips, strikes a defiant pose before leaving the edge of the dock and walking with Anna over to where a group of summer people who share the 10-cabined island with us are sunbathing. She leaves Anna with them, returns to the edge of the dock, assumes a perfect diver's pose before launching herself low, long and low, out over the bed of diamonds the sweet sun has made of the water. It almost seems as though gravity has forgotten its duty for a moment, for the moment that Holly hangs suspended before entering the water with barely a splash. It is a distance dive. Holly stays down a long time before surfacing halfway between the dock and my raft, glistening arms pulling in well-oiled synchronicity. I love watching Holly swim. She is the only one on the island who can hold her own against the tide when it is at full force. It's like having your own training pool, she cried 2 Julys ago as she climbed sleek and dripping back onto the dock. You know, she added when no one responded, like the ones you see in the back of the Sunday New York Times magazine. Just one lane makes a current you can swim against. We met in the water, actually, in the condo complex pool, indoors in December. Holly said she had bought there for the pool while I had bought for the proximity to the train into Boston. I was on my way up. She was on her way to the bottom of the pool, that is, as she sank playfully away from me and swam half the length before surfacing. Holly swims as though there was someone right there beside her trying to beat her to my raft. She seems to do everything competitively, rides her $5,000 road bike as though she is in a race, walks as though she is perpetually late, even cooks competitively, or so it seems. The manner in which she slings those pots and pans around our designer kitchen, stirs and chops as though she just might have discovered some wayward ingredient to still alive. Holly reaches my raft, takes hold with such force she almost tips me over. Anna said your name for the first time. She's glowing, my water woman, the sun a cradle of slick, smart gold on her black hair. Her eyes dance with 1,000 teases. She splashes water on me. Hey, I cry. Isn't that cool? It's downright cold. Your name, silly. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. That was gorgeous as always. We're thinking of you, even though you're in Salt Lake and your story is in Rhode Island. We're all going to be on the tent cabin island with you, thinking about you, Howard. Take care.
Thank you. I'll straighten this out at some point, but no time soon.
Our next reader is Mimi Shafer from my group.
Hi. Sitting in front of her dresser, seeing her face in the mirror, she looked away. She couldn't stand it right now. Looking at herself, knowing there were bigger issues than a little girl who refused to change her clothes. Taking a deep breath, Minnie looked down and almost automatically her hands pulled on the drawer knobs towards herself. Feeling in the back right corner, she found the cool, smooth shape of a bottle. Verboten. Yesterday had changed everything so suddenly. She gripped it firmly without fear it would break in her hand. The glass walls were so strong. They were so innocent. They knew nothing of life and big decisions. Sitting undisturbed in a shallow wooden drawer in a bedroom on the second floor of a house that appeared to be falling apart in a small farming town in the middle of a prairie near a great river that ran through the entire country. Little amber bottle, so snug, so hard, so innocent, so hidden. She released the bottle, no longer cool to the touch, but warmed by her hand. She closed the drawer and turned her back on the mirror. All this meant Minnie would have to get her hands on some brewer's yeast, according to one recipe. But because the hidden container of pennyroyal tea, which some clumsy person or some well-intentioned person, probably a woman, maybe someone from church or the hospital, Minnie didn't know the actual identity of the person who'd seen fit to slip the small bottle into her overnight bag, the one she'd prepared when she gave birth to her son. She'd found the vial upon her return when unpacking. Why someone would take it upon themselves and presume Minnie was the kind of person who on purpose would reverse what the Lord saw fit for her, why the notion was just awful.
Probably someone had dropped it accidentally and it had landed in her bag mistakenly. Her last delivery experience was great cause for concern 8 months ago. The bleeding and internal damage put her life in jeopardy. And Sonny was not even the big baby. He was very perfect, average weight and length. Now, Rosemary, she'd been a big baby, and after 51 hours of labor with her, well, the recovery was slow going, and that less than 2 years ago. The nurses tried to sound pleasant about the baby girl's length, but many felt they were somewhat embarrassed to tell her how freakishly long she was. Only 25 inches. That's not that great, is it? At first, in her astonishment, she'd not known what to do with the herb. She certainly couldn't be found with it in her possession. Trina would probably recognize it immediately because that was the class of people she came from. But Minnie certainly needed to hide the container with its contents. She suspected it was pennyroyal by the minty smell, and she'd received confirmation surreptitiously since then by looking in a botanical book. And old wives, they knew a thing or two about the tea, and hence Minnie decided to save the small glass container, socking it away in darkness, hoping it would never see the light of day again. Maybe it was intuition, or maybe it was survival instinct. But one thing Minnie seemed certain of was that no one would really be too shocked or surprised if she died in childbirth next time. And that realization felt more like a fact of life, especially in Catholic families, rather than something to be taken personally.
Thank you, Mimi. Wow, that's my favorite part of your book, not because of the subject matter, but because of how gorgeous it is. Danive is our next reader, Danive Frey. And she is in my mentor group.
Prologue. I am the observer, silently mapping how we changed into what we are becoming, watching because reality touches me too deeply. If I were to feel the growing enormity, I would be swept up in the maelstrom and borne away. How shall I survive this knowing? Powerless to lift a hand in any semblance of help or pity. I cannot even weep as I watch. My tears dry at their source, seeing this carnage that leaves its victims living as they work toward their own destruction. This is my destiny and my burden. I was the last person to see the sun with my eyes, to feel the warm air on my skin as it passed over sweet grass, to smell the deep fragrance of earth and moist, ripe air. How could I know then that I was the last fully human being on earth? Chapter 1. The enormous tree sped its fingers, releasing leaves turned brilliant gold by the last of the autumn light. Wind cradled the leaves in soft, warm puffs on their descent to earth. They fell in gutters on the roof of a small brick church nestled beneath the tree's widespread flung arms, and on Michael's unruly blue-black curls, his thin shoulders, and the sidewalk on which he walked. Michael energetically shuffled the leaves under his feet. His current experiment yielded unexpected results, and he was on a deadline. He had escaped out the back door of Denver's Franklin Institute, where he was a grad student, and had come out for a walk to clear his mind before trying to find his error, or, in the alternative, determining these data illuminated some as yet unthought of phenomenon. Not thinking, deliberately trying not to think, Michael had wandered through the pleasant century-old neighborhood built on large foundations of stone and brick when the certainty of human progress and humanity's place at the top of the world order were unchallenged assumptions. Aimlessly, unless blanking out his mind could be considered doing something, he had reached the spot beneath the enormous tree. At first, he shuffled through his fallen leaves to vent his perplexity, but then he found himself stirring them up for the sheer pleasure of sending them skittering, sailing in circles and arcs as they released the slightly musky smell of imminent decay. His ear caught a faint melody on the air, one not known, but somehow familiar. One body we, one body who partake, one church united, in communion blessed. one with each other, Lord, for one in thee. Then open thou our eyes that we may see. The hymn wafted from the church, which was built on an ancient plan. In an old country across the sea, it would have been constructed of stones gathered from the fields tilled for thousands of years by the ancestors of the congregation. Here, it was made of bricks stamped out by machine, absolutely identical. They fit into their complex pattern perfectly. Michael looked up from the leaves, his attention suddenly acute. How can people still believe this stuff, he wondered to himself. Like many scientists, he had ceased to practice any discernible religion. The concept of a quaint human-like God pulling strings and levers to control the workings of the universe was foreign to him, something outgrown, as children outgrow the comfort of their stuffed toys, but secretly cherished and recognizable. He smiled a little, enjoying the music while skeptical of the message.
Daneve, what a voice. Such a beautiful voice. Just love how that piece sort of works with deep past and future and decay and rebirth all at once. It's so gorgeous. Our next reader is Meg Foley. And she is here. Oh, and she's in my group also.
Hello. What parts of me do you love? I whisper, lying next to him in our bed. It is night. Our bedroom glistens with diluted orange light from the street lamp just outside our window. I'm holding John's hand, but looking at the place where I hammered a hole into our drywall. We never patched the hole, just hung a photo from our wedding over it. Me and him, hand in hand in the middle of the aisle, heads ducked and grinning under a blizzard of white rose petals. Except when I look now, I have to impose the memory of our smiles over the protective glass. The reflection of the street lamp has turned our faces into shards of light. His fingers twitch in mine and the corners of his mouth draw down, but this is in response to some unknowable dream, not to what I've asked. John says nothing. John is asleep. I let go of his hand, climb out of bed, and go to our bathroom, where I close the door before turning on the light. On the counter, a diorama of our daily lives told in toiletries. Here is John's razor, clogged with dark Italian hair, his one genetic gift from his mother, a source of irrational pride. Here is my eye cream, whose miracles the internet swears by, but I have yet to see because I always forget to apply it after I've brushed my teeth. And here, the toothbrush itself, nestled next to John's in the blue cup that has been scummed white by its occupant's drippings. Both toothbrushes are in need of replacement. Here are the pieces of us, of lives led in parallel, a marriage, or at least part of one, laid out in knickknacks. Is she any more or less real than this eyebrow wax? Is he an amalgamation of a man with no more cohesion than the coarse hairs he leaves scattered over the sink each morning? Can she, by some force of will, make them both into something more? I open a drawer. Here is the little wet wheel of yellow pills. Around and around they go, never moving anywhere. This is, in fact, the only wheel whose purpose is to halt a journey before it begins. We are exactly where we're meant to be, says the piece of John that dominates my imagination tonight. I see him touching the burn on my hand, assuring me that I am all flesh, all bone. I see him rolling me onto my back so he can smother that flesh with his flesh. What parts of me do you love? Answer, all of them, if only I could put them together. I roll the wheel through my fingers. Where did you go, Jenny? I open the toilet lid and, one by one, pop the little pills out of their blisters, punching holes in foil seals. Plip, plip, plip into still water, ripples radiating outward. Answer, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Wow, I'm afraid to say anything about that. Except what parts of me do you love? And then the shards, the faces become these shards of light, and then you attach it to each of those toiletries. It's just like it's like the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Either that or romantic comedy. I'm not really sure which one it is. It's right in the middle. And our final reader tonight is Anna Blomberg, who is in the ether someplace, and she's going to read last. She's also in my group.
Excuse me, I have a cold. That's why I'm home and not getting all of you sick there at Lighthouse. All right. The old man stepped towards Henry and reached out his withered hand. He touched Henry's face. Ah, youth, sweet, fleeting youth. Then he grasped Henry's hair in his gnarled fist. Henry bit his lip. I'll be needing one of these, perhaps a few for good measure. The old man's eyes glinted in the moonlight as he ripped out a fistful of Henry's hair. Henry felt a tear welling up, but then he saw something moving in the shadows. Two figures silently emerged from across the clearing. It was Addie and Finn. The old man was beginning to turn back towards the cauldron. Henry needed to keep him distracted for a bit longer. Well, what do you need them for? Stammered Henry. The old man paused and then turned back to Henry. To finish my potion. Alchemy is quite important, you see, yet another field of knowledge that you are lacking. So you need to combine it with what is in that cauldron, Henry said loudly. Finn and Addie began to approach the cauldron. They had gotten the message. The old man frowned. You know, Henry, I really expected more wit from you. Apparently, not all gifts are inherited. Finn and Addie were at the cauldron. As they reached for the stays suspending the pot, a twig snapped beneath their feet. The old man spun on his heels towards them. What the blazes? Henry watched helplessly as the old man raised the elm wand and shouted a spell in Old Breton. At the same moment, Finn and Addie pitched the cauldron over onto the forest litter. The boiling liquid spread amongst the acorns and oak leaves. They quickly retreated from the fire several paces, but it was too late. The spell reached them, and they froze. Blast, said the old man. That will take me hours to concoct once again. This was Henry's chance. The old man was distracted. Henry couldn't move, but he had to think of something. He couldn't reach for his amulet, but he could feel the cool silver of it on his chest. Dagda, he thought, God of the Druids, please help us. What can I do? The old man approached Finn and Addie. I hope that the two of you enjoyed that little feat of strength, because it is the last thing you'll ever do. Henry is the only one I need, you see, and your skulls will make a nice little addition to my collection. I grow stronger with the strength of my fallen foes. The old man spread out his hands and looked up to the trees, turning in a circle to show the grove in its completeness. With horror, Henry saw dozens of skulls hanging from the trees in front of him. Addie and Finn's eyes swirled in their sockets and grew wide as they looked in the trees above Henry's head. Then Henry felt a warmth in the center of his chest. His amulet was growing warmer. The three elements of the Triskel, earth, water, fire. Fire! The old man was standing right next to it. The old man reached inside his cloak of raven feathers and removed his steel blade. No need to use magic for everything, you see. And a true sacrifice calls for blood. Ladies first? Henry saw the moonlight glinting off the blade as the old man raised it to strike Addie. No, cried Finn. Henry stared intently at the flames and took a deep breath in through his nose. All the universe in a grain of sand, all the time he needed in just one moment. Then he breathed out through his mouth with as much force as he could. The flames exploded upward and outward, nearly reaching the canopy and engulfing the old man, who staggered back, a ball of fire. He ran several feet before falling amongst the acorns and the leaves of his mighty oaks. Henry felt the thread of the spell holding him break, and he rushed forward to the other side of the fire. He rounded it, yelling, Addie, Finn, and then he saw them. They had fallen back into the leaves and sat there transfixed by the fire, eyes wide, mouths gaping, slightly singed, but unharmed.
Anna, it's such a beautiful book. You just make me want to be 12 again, so I could be reading this as an actual middle grade person, but it's just as moving for an adult, I think. It's really gorgeous. It's pure magic. We are now going to open it to some questions. Maybe we can start with some questions from some of our guests here. And maybe the people here could come up and answer into the microphone. And we could also call on some people, some of the writers online. Do you have a question, Sydney? Sydney? I'm picking on you. Wendy, I know you have a question. What's with you people? Nini, you have a question. I know you do. Oh, thank God.
Depending on where you are in the book project, how have you felt that the book project helped you get to where you are with where you're at the book now?
You guys can sort of gather up here if you want and just answer as a group.
Hello again. It's very odd speaking to a camera and not seeing people's faces and also being in person. I wanted to answer that first just because I think the biggest thing that the book project has done for me this last year has been the people that I've met and grown close to while I've been here. We all had a terrible year with COVID, and terrible in some ways and good in others, but I think if I hadn't had this support group, I don't know that I would have written anything. And it was kind of the rope that yanked me through this year in a good way, as good as can be. And I know we're emerging from things now, but I don't think that changes the fact that there's an enormous amount of camaraderie and accountability in this program that has been extremely important and will be extremely important moving forward.
When I started the book project, I had a partial book that I had done about half to 3/4. And I had been working on it quite a long time. And I thought I was never going to finish it. So the reason I got in the book project was I thought, okay, I think I'm going to be able to finish this book. And so I have actually finished it and then done 2 revisions on it. I've had my first read and then I'm getting ready to revise it for my second read in November. So, I mean, just the community has been so wonderful. And the mentor too, just yesterday, Ben called me because I had a difficult agent meeting and he just called me and said, how was it? And I said, it was horrible. And so he cheered me up. But I mean, that's what it's like. It is like, it's what Meg said. It's just a great community of writers. And it's just every day I feel the support from the book project. And I feel like people care that I'm writing and finishing this book too.
You don't have to all do it. Does anyone online want to answer?
Sure. I was going back, just as an example, I was going back to find something to read for this evening. And I'm not actually finished with my project like Frances, who's in my group, but I'm closer and I've generated a lot of good writing. But I just noticed that the stuff I wrote when I was first applying for the project is just not, I don't know exactly how to say it, but it's just not the same quality. I've just gained, I mean, I have a bachelor's in creative writing from DU, but, and that was a while ago. So I haven't been writing, there was a gap of time where I wasn't writing much, but I just feel like I really deepened my craft. Just, a lot of ways into the process, a lot of cogent and practical tips and practices, and just getting a little window onto other people's process, you know, through all of the intensives and the craft workshops. It's been very helpful for me. I'm not big on workshops just because I'm a slow reader and I tend to, I think, overanalyze. So that takes a lot of energy for me to give feedback in workshop, which, you know, in small doses, I do love. And I love getting feedback as well from a group. That's another thing is my mentor group formed a workshop that has met monthly. I don't know if we'll continue or if a few of us will continue, but having like traveling through a process with a small group of people who understand your project and getting feedback from just the same people who know what you're trying to do, know what your aims are, is just so much more personal and lovely than just sort of like scattershot to different workshops that who don't know your project, which to me is very scary and really throws me off of my focus. So yeah, that's lovely to go through the process with a small group, and just the input and the craft seminars and workshops is really cool. Like at first I was like, I don't get this. And then it just something clicked and I was like, oh, this is just like a little, like a bunch of different little sparks, like just different things to spark your inspiration, your creativity, and your process. Like just this week being with Emily Black's class, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I can finish my book now because of this exercise you just gave me. Like it's just a lot of different options to help you in your journey, in your book journey. So it is weird just talking to the camera to say this, but
No, bravo.
And a couple of you talked about the weekend intensives, and they're different from the, of course, from the workshop and the one-on-one meetings. How did anything stand out for you, or particularly inspiring or horrifying about the weekend intensive? You should go, Mimi. You were talking earlier on the porch about.
I was talking. The intensives throughout the year, there's 3 of them each year. So you get a total of 6. And they're organized really well. The first one of the book project is discussing the end. And then the next one is the middle. And then the next one is your endings. And so you do that twice. And it's logical. I think when I went to the first intensive, I didn't know what to expect. But then it seemed like it was just intentionally organized to guide us through, which is what everybody needed. And it did the job. And then being in my group or my year, right, we only got a couple that were in person, and then the rest have been on Zoom. And I gotta say that my experience, my takeaways did not suffer because we were remote. So Lighthouse really mastered that remote thing really quickly and did a fantastic job. Anybody else?
and just for the record, that I was also talking about the intensives when I was giving my take on things.
For me, the intensives were, well, intense because I'm an introvert. And by the end of those 3 days, I was just wiped out and I felt like I couldn't string another word together, but they were really terrific. I thought the quality of instructors was just superb, and I was really surprised at who was willing to come here and teach us. So that was very inspiring for me. The other nice thing about the intensives is that's where you get to really connect with people who are not in your cohort. So, yes, the classes are wonderful. And then we all adjourn to the restaurant across the street and eat burritos and meet each other. So I thought, yeah, I really like that part of the intensive because you're so focused on your book and your cohort that can become a little insular, but then the intensives break that up. So that was really valuable for me.
Stepping away or thinking now, 2 years later, on where you are in the process, what could you tell someone entering the book project, stepping in with an idea or even a whole book, how to take or how you have taken best advantage of your time in the project?
I'll jump into that one. Howard here.
Oh, is Howard going?
Oh, I'll be brief. You know, you get in and it's a thrill, and I had a very quiet month beforehand because I think I knew that you know what was going to hit the fan, and the question becomes, well, do I bring something that's a little more polished? Do I want to try and impress people, or do I want to bring something I'm struggling with? I brought something I'm struggling with. And, stepping in at the beginning, you have an idea, an image, you kind of know where it's going. And it changes over time. So I'm on my second draft, 300-page book. I'm probably 150 pages into the second draft. It's a different story, much more mature, much cleaner. And what I appreciate about the process, number one, is the people. I've gotten close to a lot of people, and I'm a people person, so that's important. But everyone tries to speak so you can hear. So it's good, constructive feedback. I don't like to think of it as criticism. I don't like that word. Good, constructive feedback, and it's honest. So, I mean, sometimes you'll be blown out of the water, and you might say, well, I got to sit and think about this for a while before I carry on. But when you think about it, would you really want it any other way? So still at it, and I'm hoping we can get together in August to have a celebration. Did you hear that, Bill?
I don't think I'm going to be in town.
Okay. Then we'll have a really good time. Anyways, thank you all.
Thanks, Howard. Just to add on to what Howard said, I think coming into the book project, I probably had an idea of like how things were going to go. And there's a bit of an in-joke in the book project that like, they're going to be the best and the hardest years of your life. Anything that can go wrong in your personal life is probably going to go wrong during the book project. Which has been just kind of universally true for everyone in my cohort, at least. But I think, and anyone who's here, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's also been universally true that it's been as rewarding as it has been difficult. So I think to answer Bill's question, I would say expect it to be rewarding, expect it to come out of it with a lot of great writing that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, but don't expect it to be a linear process where you step one, get into the book project, step two, write books, step three, get an agent, get published. All of those things are, I think, included in the path of the book project, but the real reward is the process.
Yeah, I think it took me, it's a 2-year program, and that's great that it is. The first year, I didn't think I knew quite what I was doing in terms of choosing classes and then workshopping. But the second year after I had my first read, I was really clear on what I needed to learn craft-wise. And I noticed that like with LitFest, this time I took a lot of classes that were exactly specifically connected to what the problems were in my manuscript. So that did take a while to learn that, but it was just so beautiful. Like I cannot wait to get working on my revision because I have so many tools now just from this LitFest too. So.
I would say one of the things that I learned the hard way was that just because you're in book project doesn't mean you're going to get into what you need to get into or what you should be getting into class-wise. So you really have to take an inventory as early as possible and make sure you know if you have to apply for a class, like some advanced workshops you have to apply for. And I'm kind of a disorganized person, so I wouldn't realize that until the last minute when it was too late a couple times. So I do feel like I missed out on some things because I didn't quite understand the lay of the land. So the more people you can talk to and get on top of things, I'm maybe a bit more disorganized than most. So you may not have that problem, but it's not a structured program. You've got to dig in and find your own structure, or you might feel a little bit lost. I mean, I don't know if all the cohorts are the same, if different people feel that way, but that was disappointing to me a few times. So I would just advise anybody considering the book project or coming into it to realize they've got to create some of their own structure and understand the application process per workshop. It's not just handed to you. Nobody's figuring it out for you. So just a word for potential people coming in. But yeah, you get a lot of tips, a lot of stuff to work with. That's very, very helpful.
You have a question, Mindy?
No.
Wendy, I know you.
I don't. Okay, when does it actually start in August? Like, what does it mean when it starts? And when is the first intensive? And on her point, I don't know, her name is on who just spoke.
Oh, Catherine.
Like, yeah, so is the structure, when she says there's no structure.
Not in the intensives are very structured, and you just come in and everything's there and you just participate, but you also get credits towards workshops. And for that, sometimes you have to apply to the workshop. You're not just automatically in because you're book project. So just be aware. That's the one thing that I wish I had known going in that I didn't realize. Maybe somebody told me and I forgot, but you know, this has been a really weird, very, very difficult year. So it's possible that that was something in the paperwork and I didn't see it or something like that. But that's just my 2 cents for people. Know if it's an advanced workshop, you may have to apply in LitFest for sure. I can't remember if you have to for others, but yeah, just make sure you know what to do to get into something you want to get into far in advance, because stuff does fill up and yeah, you might feel bad not getting into, but the intensives are completely laid out, and you just for us on Zoom, we just plug in the Zoom link and we're on. But yeah, when you have all your credits for your workshops, that's where you got to figure out your own structure. Sorry, I wasn't clear about that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'll speak to it a little bit, the structure as well. I think Catherine's right that there's a lot of choosing that you do for yourself. You have access to pretty much the entire Lighthouse catalog. Within that, you have, it's 4 8-week classes and 5 8-week classes and 4 4-week classes. And that's included in the project. And then you do have the 2 years to decide for yourself how you're going to use those classes and what you're going to apply them to. So yeah, keep an eye on the catalog, but there's a lot of advantage in that too, because unlike a traditional structure, you don't have to cram all of your credits into a single semester. I'm about to graduate from the book project and I still have a couple of classes left. So you also have extra time outside of it to decide what classes to take. So I think there's also a huge advantage in the fact that you can go at your own pace as you're selecting classes and going through things. Remind me what the rest of your question was.
When does it actually start? Is it August? Like what's the actual date that it starts?
I have no idea this year.
We have a welcome party in August. Mid-August, and then we have the first weekend is in September. But classes start in August. So you're already in classes, you've already met your mentor, probably with your mentor group, and then you get your first week. We don't just drop you into the boiling pot. you apply for it. And the application process is going on right now. Can they hear me through that thing? Sort of.
You want to come?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're currently in the application period, and you go online and you find the application. You apply with a sample, and we ask you a bunch of questions, and you decide who you might want to work with, or you can leave it up to us. We have some financial aid, and part of the application process is asking for financial aid. And this period closes on the 19th of June. And then the mentors and Shauna Kelly work our way through, and we usually get 100 or more applications. We take 24 people each year. And we decide on fellowships, and like Nini over here was our first teaching fellow because she's just kind of great. So that's, and if you need more questions answered, you can email me, William@lighthousewriters.org, or Torin is, he's make sure it doesn't explode every day. Torin@lighthousewriters.org.
What's the general cost?
General cost, currently is it 14,000 for the 2 years. For the 14,000, you get all the weekend intensives, you get all those classes we talked about. You get the publishing courses, you get meetings with agents, you get a first full read of a full manuscript and a second full read of a full manuscript. It's a lot of stuff for $14,000.
Is there a date though in August when classes start, and a date for the first intensive?
It has to start like the 16th one. I don't remember the exact date. I just want to jump in while Bill is looking that up and say that one of the most invaluable parts of the book project are those first and second read-throughs. I'm going to be a little bit uncouth just because we're talking about money, but you would pay like $3,000 to somebody else just for those reads, just for one of those reads, to get the quality that you're going to get from Lighthouse instructors. And I know because I've looked. So you get a full comprehensive read, a long editorial letter that you would not get that high of a quality unless you were working with an editor at a publishing house. So that's a huge value to book project.
Working with Shauna
I don't know if you can hear Nini, but you also get access to our publishing expert, Shauna, who she worked in literary agencies for decades, I think, and she is just in on the industry. And you get, I forget exactly how much time with her, but a few hours of consultation that you can spread out however you like. And she helps you with your query letter and helps you prepare for agent meetings and gives you all the ins and outs of the publishing world, which is a difficult one to navigate on your own. So that's another great value.
It is true. Shauna's the best. The first weekend intensive is the weekend of September 24th. I don't happen to have in my calendar when the big party is. Do you have it? August 21st. And we're out of time. I loved hearing all the readers. Of course, they're amazing, always. And we hope if you're interested in the book project, you will follow up with us and apply. And good luck to everyone and have a great summer. Bye.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.